Get ready for a sneak peek at Shattering of Ro and Rage of Cthurath. And who exactly is the Ro family? Get ready for a lore lesson. And do you have EverQuest tattoos? How you can show them off. The EverQuest Show starts right now.
I'm on top of the world and now I'm living. And the good just gets better, keeps on giving. Not even close to the end, it's just beginning. Life is getting lighter while the days are getting brighter. Gotta celebrate life and get excited about good times, good living. Come on, shout it out. Hey! Take it up, take it over, take it out of control. Today I'm freeing my soul and now you got me singing.
The EverQuest Show is back, and there is so much to talk about for both EverQuest and EverQuest II. For EverQuest, the Shattering of Ro has been announced as EverQuest's 32nd expansion, and for EQ2, Rage of Cthurath has entered beta. So get ready for previews of what's to come for both games. But first, this season, I want to try out something a little bit different. I truly enjoyed putting together the Fippy Awards earlier this year, and don't worry, the Fippy Awards for 2026 will be here before you know it, but I'm gonna shake things up a bit. In addition to all your favorite categories like Best New NPC Models, Zones, and the top news headlines of the past year, I'd also like to add some new categories for player housing in both EverQuest and especially for EverQuest II. So if you're a decorator, get those creations polished up. I'll have information in the coming episodes about how to submit for a nomination. I also still plan on recognizing content creators and streamers. But for guilds, I have a better idea. I loved showcasing guilds on different servers of all types and for both games, but in the end, it really is impossible to narrow down to just a single guild of the year. So let's spotlight a guild each episode. Think of it as your way to get the word out about your guild. It could be your own self-promotional video that you create to be shown here on the EverQuest Show, or it could be an interview with the guild leadership, or whatever it is that makes your guild special. Think of it like a commercial for your guild. Now, there's no cost, there's no catch. It's just a way to get the word out about your guild. It gives a little bit of extra content here for the EverQuest Show, and also provides a way for you to potentially recruit for your guild or get the word out about what type of guild you are. If you are interested in having your guild in the spotlight, you can reach out by going to EverQuestShow.com. And while you're there, do you have any EverQuest tattoos? I've done various stories in the past with inked up players and even developers that show their love for EQ forever displayed on their body in the form of tattoos. Well, I want to see yours. If you have any EQ tats, contact the EverQuest Show for an upcoming episode all about EverQuest tattoos. I want to see those epic weapon tattoos, icons, key art, or whatever else it is that you've gone for. And who knows? Maybe I'll let you join me on my quest to get my own EverQuest tattoo. So again, it's EverQuestShow.com. That's where you'll find a link to be able to submit photos or preferably video of your ink to show off your EverQuest tattoos. Now, fall always ups the excitement for the upcoming expansion, so here's everything we know about the Shattering of Ro and the Rage of Cthurath. It's the familiar pace that we've come to expect. In October-ish, we get the name of the upcoming expansions for both EQ and EQ2 in the fall producer's letter, followed by pre-orders for the expansion and the beginning of beta. So let's start with EQ. For EverQuest, we can now proclaim that Shattering of Ro is the official title for EverQuest's 32nd expansion, even though the copyright sniffers guessed that a while back. So what exactly is happening in the Shattering of Ro? Well, it looks like it's going to be an episode of Law & Order Norrath. Get Lenny Briscoe on the case because Drizzle Ro has been murdered. There's been an explosion in the plane of magic, and the lone survivor was Fiona V, who lies unconscious in the plane of growth. Solasek Ro puts the blame squarely on Fiona and all mortals, and looks to funnel his anger into a new rift between mortals and gods. And the gods are taking sides. On one side, Tunair, looking after her chosen, has sided with Fiona, and Nathaniel Marr has joined the team. On the opposing side, Solasek Ro is vowing to get revenge for the death of Drizzle Ro, and it doesn't take much for Ralof Zek to get on board. There's a lot to flesh out on exactly who's doing what, but even Quellius and Brel Cyrillus are key figures in the story of Shattering of Ro. So now that we have the general idea of what has happened to kick off the expansion, let's get to what is included in the expansion. Given the general pattern that expansion releases have settled into over the last decade, a level increase every other expansion, and since we saw no level increase with the Outer Brood, the Shattering of Ro will increase the level cap now to 130. With that level increase, of course, come the obligatory new quests, spells, armor, and abilities for those 5 new levels, and we also know there will be 6 new zones in the expansion. You'll enter the expansion in the Scarred Grove. This is a new zone modeled after the Plane of Growth, complete with the Tree of Life that has been set ablaze. Here, the warring sides are setting up camps, and we get our first look at the various gods and fleshing out the storyline. From there, you'll revisit 2 reimagined zones from EverQuest's 11th expansion, the Prophecy of Ro. Arkstone Shattered Isles and Ruined Relic are both reimagined, and in the case of Ruined Relic, obliterated versions of those 2 zones. These zones are part of the Plane of Magic. That's the realm of Drizzle Ro, and that's what's exploded, leading to her murder. Also in the expansion are a few very strange zones. First, there's Candlemaker's Workshop. Now, this is part of the Underfoot, so this is the realm of Brel Cyrillus. His sentient candle creations inhabit this area, which is made mostly of wax structures and flowing wax pools. But the armies of Sol Ro and Rallis Zek, they've infiltrated this realm, and it's up to us to figure out what's going on here, hence the appearance of Brel Cyrillus in this expansion. Next is one of the stranger zones in the expansion. This is the Vortex. Now, it's described as pure chaos, and boy is it. Now, keep in mind, Shattering of Ro just began beta, so there's still a lot of tweaking that needs to be done, especially with the wonky flashing and transparency of the textures that are throughout the zone, but it does look very cool. Finally, there's the Labyrinth of Spite, and you can't help but get the feeling that you've been here before, and that you really hate this place. Yes, it looks very much like the Plane of Hate, including the mobs that inhabit the zone. After all, we haven't heard from Inaruk in a while. So I think the direction here is a smart one. First of all, the gods are always a popular storyline, given the popularity of Planes of Power, but this comes from a little bit of a different angle. We get to revisit a couple of reimagined and completely changed zones from Prophecy of Ro, that's Arkstone and Relic, and while also visiting some throwbacks to the Plane of Growth and the Plane of Hate. And then some completely new ideas like Candlemaker's Workshop and the Vortex. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail here because I'll have a complete review of the expansion coming up when the expansion officially launches in December, and we've only just begun the beta, so a lot's going to change. This is simply a preview of what we know so far. So what else do we know? Well, in addition to the 6 new zones, the expansion also has 2 new shared bank slots and a new class and race combo in the form of Vashir Druids. But one of the more innovative ideas in the expansion is something called Magic Storms. Now, if you recall during the launch of Prophecy of Ro, auras made their debut. Player auras have become a staple of the game, but the auras found in Norrath were used with limited success. Now, these Magic Storms in Shattering of Ro are touted as churning tempests of unstable and unpredictable magic that is chaos. But if their power could be harnessed, it remains to be seen exactly how that's going to work, but then again, we're only in beta. Shattering of Ro isn't expected to launch until December, and at that time, you can expect a full review of the expansion from the EverQuest Show. On the EverQuest II side of things, the Fall Producers Letter dropped the 22nd expansion's name, Rage of Cthurath. It's also slated to launch in December, and this one is a bit out there. The expansion centers around the Void, and both the name and the artwork are giving some Lovecraft vibes. Rifts to the Void have opened throughout Norrath, and one of those rifts is open in Antonica, and we're of course going to poke around and investigate. There, you'll find our old friend Najina, who assists us throughout the expansion. It seems NPCs around Norrath have become trapped in the Void, and they've taken up residence there. Now, they're asking for our help from the dangers within this strange place. The expansion will cover 5 overland zones, although 2 of these, Garion and Zan Zabaz, are on the smaller side. You'll also visit Yawngoroth, Ugothal Sprawl, and the Unknown. Yawngoroth is a sort of junkyard of rocks and bones and pieces floating in the void that have come together. There the Daru greet you when you arrive. In Ugothal Sprawl, you'll encounter Dominar's Rule. Think of him like an evil-eye Dr. Frankenstein, shaping and growing the landscape into this. And finally, there's the unknown. It's described as the largest single piece of solid mass within the void with enough murky fluid to form a vast ocean. So what or who exactly is Cthurath? Sometimes also called the Consumer, it's an eldritch god who strives to consume everything in the universe, which sounds pretty ambitious. Here's what's included in the Rage of Cthurath. The expansion increases the level cap for both adventure and trade skills to 135, as well as an all-new adventure, signature, and trade skill line of quests. It also touts a new illusion keyring, as well as a new feature called Guild Coalitions, to allow a character to be in 2 guilds at the same time. There are also new heroic dungeons and public quests from the Void Incursions. Rage of Cthurath is available for pre-order, which qualifies you for beta, which is happening right now. Official launch is sometime in December. So with the upcoming expansions, there's a lot of interest in Solasec Ro or Drizzle Ro. But who or what is Ro? It's a word that you've heard since the beginning of EverQuest. You might have gotten squashed by a sand giant in the desert of Ro. You've seen it on various spells or item names. Or if you spent the server downtime reading the manual or RPG books where they talked about the gods of Norrath, in which Ro becomes a common name. So who are the Ro family? Let's do a little lore lesson. But before I do, I must note, while I love the lore of Norrath and reading about all the details, it's a frustratingly complex and commonly inconsistent aspect of EQ. After 28 years of EverQuest, multiple games, lore that is inconsistent from EQ to EQ2, not to mention the other franchise entries, finding out what's canon and not canon is nearly impossible. There's a lot of gray area. Not to mention there's in-game references and lore, some of which is purposefully untruthful to perpetuate part of the storyline or plot, but much of which is just an artifact of hundreds of different developers and writers piecing together a world that seems even more vast than our own. So what's the takeaway here? Well, lore isn't easy. Sometimes I stay away from it just for that reason, because I don't want to create a video in which half of it is wrong when you compare it to this or to that. It's hard to tell what's fact and what's fiction. So, having said that, here's my understanding of the gods of Norrath. First of all, it's important to know that they aren't a family in the way we think of it, like fathers and children and brothers and sisters like mortals. And it all begins with the Nameless. Now, for those that are enjoying role-playing, this is described as a formless power devoid of purpose. It's responsible for the creation of the universe. You can call it existence or physics. It's the natural universe, the Big Bang. But if you want to take a more meta view, the Nameless are essentially the developers. They create the world of Norrath. Now, before I get to never-ending story here, essentially the Nameless created the 4 elemental gods for earth, air, water, and fire. We have the Wraith, unironically an anagram of earth. For water, we have the Triumvirate, that's made up of 3 different gods. Terumar, which is also an anagram for water, if you missed that, along with the other 2, Isi, which is ice, and Povar, which is an anagram for vapor. Zegani is the elemental god for air. That's an anagram for oxygen, by the way. And finally, that brings us to Fippy Ro, who rules over the plane of fire. Now, some liberties were taken with the spelling here, but Fippy Ro is an anagram of Inferno. Now, these gods make up the elemental gods, and using their elemental power, they created the gods of influence. Those are the ones in which Norrathians worship. Now, for Fippy Ro, he used some of his power as the god of fire to create Solasec Ro, giving his quote-unquote child, for lack of a better term, influence over the sun and flames. So, where does Drizzle Ro come in? Well, Drizzle Ro, formerly a demigod of magic, is now the goddess of magic, sometimes called the matron of art. It was Drizzle Ro who restored the timeline at the end of Planes of Power, and that's what created the split in the timeline between EQ and EQ2. And just a note here, Planes of Power had Drizzle Ro wrong all along. While Drizzle was essentially portrayed as a female Doug, her model then was actually wrong. They simply didn't create a Drizzle Ro NPC model at that time, using a standard female NPC model instead. But in the upcoming Shattering of Ro expansion, we'll get to see her for real this time, and all previous versions of Drizzle Ro have been converted to this new model. But before you get bent out of shape about that, keep in mind that now this new Drizzle Ro model now reflects the original concept art that was created more than 2.5 decades ago. It is Drizzle Ro that is the victim in the plane of magic explosion at the center of Shattering of Ro. Now, there are a few other notable Ros in the family tree, so to speak. Most notably is Ayane Ro, which was created by Drizzle Ro as the goddess of music, presiding over the plane of music. It was Ayane Ro who was at the center of the Prophecy of Ro expansion, where Mayong Mismore invaded the plane of music. And finally, there are a few demigods or lesser-known Ros. There's Varrig Ro, who's the god of blacksmithing and the quote-unquote son of Solasek Ro. That's more fleshed out in EverQuest II lore. Also of mention is Zerani Ro, the goddess of hearth and home, but there's very little mention of her even in EQ2. So there you have it, a look at the Ro family tree, so you have a little backstory as we enter the Shattering of Ro. So that's the lore as I understand it, but maybe you have a difference of opinion. You can always respond in the comment section or let me know if you want to hear more lore segments and potentially what you want them to be about. Also, if you have those EverQuest tattoos or you'd like to spotlight your guild right here on the EverQuest Show, make sure you go to EverQuestShow.com. You'll find the links there to how you can submit your photos or submit your guild. Thank you so much for watching this episode, and I'll see you in Norrath.
We gotta be the best we can be. And though sometimes we don't want to, still we gotta chase our dreams. Reach up and reach high, because we're gonna pull it through and give it all we got, even though it can seem hard to catch and make it happen. But we can't start sliding, come on, and do what you gotta do to fight on. And so no matter what comes your way, nothing can ruin your day or even wipe a smile away. And by the time I'm up and out of my bed, I got 100 new ideas floating around in my head, with the hope for tomorrow, a dream that I can see of all the awesome things, the great people we can be. Or maybe by the music or the songs that I sing, I'll change the world with the simple message that it will bring.